Hey everybody, this is the video that answers the question, hey, how do I update the NFL algorithm? Got a copy of this Excel file for this crazy guy on YouTube who predicts football games better than anybody else. How do I update this thing? Well, there's about 12 steps, honestly. There's about 12 steps to updating the file. I'm going to go through every one of them in simulation so that I've answered kind of every question about every sheet. I'm not going to show the projections for week 4, but I'm going to show you how you update everything because it's the same process for every week going forward here. Now that we are in week 4, it had to happen right around here because you couldn't do anything with the standings before week 4 because not everyone had played one home and away game at least. And so you couldn't get numbers, but now in week 4 you can, and this is something I've known for years. And so it's now week 4, so we can finally standardize this process. So let's talk about what you do. Well, step 1 is the injury report. You go to RotoWire, and I'm not going to go to RotoWire, and I'm not going to show the video of the website and grabbing the stats because I did that. I actually did a video on this. I did a video that was 30 minutes long is what I did. And I went through everything and I realized it was recording the wrong screen and it's completely useless. So this video is a whole lot faster because I've just done this process. So I can explain it really fast. And that's how I know it's about 12 steps. Step 1, injury report. Grab it from RotoWire. If you don't know where it is, there are other videos to talk about that. But if you don't know where that is, you're in trouble. Go to the injury report on RotoWire, get it and paste it here. Make sure you don't have old injury stats hanging out at the bottom. Like a lot of times I'll clear this thing out. It's just the clear part. These are formulas. Make sure your formulas go down all the way when you paste the injury report. That's important. Okay. So injury report is huge. So that's step 1. We're going to hide everything once we're done. All right. And we're not going to show picks and we're not going to show cube. We are going to show projection pivot. Oh, there's picks. You saw it for a second. For those of you who want to pause. Projection pivot. So this thing was created off of the injury report. So once you refresh the sheet, you've got different things you can check. You can check for only people that are listed as completely healthy and not questionable at all. You can look at who the questionable people are. You can see here in week 4, Detroit, New Orleans, Miami, Buffalo, huge number of injuries. It's Tua actually is who it is in this game. So you don't know if he's actually hurt or not or playing. So lots of information, which is why the injury report is the most important sheet in the file and getting it updated, honestly. So that's the injury report. That's refreshing the projection pivot. Make sure that your number here is pulling something. If you end up with different positions or something screwed up and this thing gets screwed up and you get no numbers here in column M, you can easily change that by just equal sign the new grand total column. But you need to have numbers in M. M is where everything is calculated from. And so you can see we'll back up to what it looked like a second ago. It looks like this normally with the proper things unfiltered. So there's got to be numbers in M. So that's the projection pivot sheet. Okay, done. Odds. Grab odds from RotoWire. Super easy. Paste them right here. Leave the ones from the Thursday night game when you come in and do Sunday again, if you do Sunday or Saturday or whenever they're games, because you don't want to override them because they're related to the cube sheet. Okay. And the cube sheet is connected to this. So you want to leave the entire week in here. All right. So that's the odds. Done. Schedule. Make sure you've updated scores from previous weeks. And make sure this number, this is really important, make sure this number is in the current week. This is week 4. It's not week 5. It's not week 2. It's week 4 because this has to do with how many results we're recording as being finalized. So this has got to be the current week. So the schedule, done. All player sheet. All player sheet is fed in from a bunch of other sheets. Let's talk about those sheets. The passing sheet. Go to RotoWire, get player stats, get passing stats, paste them right here. That's what you do. You can talk about whether or not you want to include passers based on how many attempts they've had, but we won't talk about that in this video. Passers, done. Do the same thing for rushers. Paste them right here. Done. Do the same thing for receivers. Paste them right here. Done. Do the same thing for defense. And also keep an eye on your percentages of how you allocate defensemen or defensive players. Paste that right there. Done. Grab the kickers as well. Done. The matrix, you have to do anything to because it's done. And it's automated formulas from now on. So you don't have to do anything with the matrix. Done. Standings. Go to the pro reference link here. Copy the table that looks like this. It comes in a little screwy and you have to reformat it a little bit to get it to be right. But put that here. Okay. So do that. Done. Keep an eye on your adjusted rating magnifier, which has to do with something else I'll talk about in another video. Set at 45 right now is okay. It's usually going to be all the way down at 35. This will be 35 by midway through season because it's going to end up at 35. But it's still a little higher now for reasons I'll explain later. Standings done. Season pivot sheet. So now you have the current week. You've got all your projections. You could mess around with percentages here if you want to change things around. You can do all kinds of different things here. It doesn't really matter, but it does get you a rendering. Let's do a rendering for week 18 because I want to talk about week 4 of this video. The very last week of the season, this is rendering that. You copy this area right here from the win strength to this ending percentage right here. So you're copying this area. Copy, and then you go to the cube and you're going to overlay in the cube what it is that you're pasting. We're repasting week 18 for some reason because I'm showing you how you do a week, whatever week it is. Week 18 starts right here. You start in the win strength column. Week 18 is right here. Paste as values, and voila, you're done. And now you've got picks, cubes, 18, like week 18, we just redid week 18, and these are apparently our predictions this super early in the season here. We think that Indianapolis will beat Houston 31-13, even though these two teams tied, I think, already once in the season. That's what it says it'll do in week 18, okay? So season pivot, pretty much done. You mess around with all the percentages you want, done. Our all player sheet. If you had any errors in your players and they're on the wrong team coming from one of those sheets that we hid, and this is, for example, this is all the passers. These are all the QBs. Then in green here is going to be all the rushing stat people all the way down. Okay, even though some of those people are not like running backs, that's rushing stats in that area. This is receiving stats in blue all the way here, and then there's kickers at the bottom right here. Okay, that's what all of these players are and whether or not they're on the correct team. If somebody is on the wrong team, you'll see an error here. For example, the way you can do that is you just change someone's team to, Miami or something. It says check team. It says Bryan Edwards either is or is not on Miami. Is his gold list name, meaning this is our master list of every player and what team they're on. What team is Bryan Edwards on? He's got to be in this list. Let's find him. Bryan Edwards is right here. He's on Atlanta. Oh, wait a minute. So what happened? Is he really on Atlanta or is he on Miami? You'd have to look that up on a third-party source and answer that question about who he actually plays for. But we know he plays for Atlanta, and we just made that change. So you make sure that this thing is correct. And if this thing is correct, then if you get an error over here on any one of these people, it means you need to go in to their actual roster sheet, whether it was a passer or a rusher or whatever. Okay, you have to go in there. And why do we have an odds 2? We don't need an odds 2 sheet. I'm unhiding everything again because we're done. We went through every single sheet. Now we have to rehide them because you need them. And we went through every sheet. And that's how you update this file. Once you've gotten into week 4, I don't have to do any more crazy stuff related to week 1, 2, 3, and use last year's stats and any of that stuff. All that stuff's done. The process is now pretty standardized, and it's just doing those sheets. And you end up where you get some additional intelligence in this file is updating your injury report currently, and then simulating in your projection pivot, looking at who's hurt and how that might impact the games and who to stay away from and then who maybe to go after because you think injuries might be impactful. So that's the update on how to update the NFL algorithm, guys. Purchase copies on KentBraverman.com. You can get on the email list and get this stuff as early as I do it if you don't want to do that yourself. But I would recommend going and subscribing to RotoWire to get access to these stats so that you can download them and add them in. It is really, really helpful, and this thing's going to get better. I stand by my word that nobody beats this thing. I mean, nobody beats the algorithm. Like you beat the algorithm one day, you had a good day. You beat the algorithm one week, you had a good week. Show me beating the algorithm again. And definitely show me beating the algorithm over the entire season when it comes to projecting scores and overs and unders. And when you just show me that because it's just it's taking into account basically everything we can. And it's doing it without bias and it's just doing it with who's playing and it just knows. And that's why it does things like it did on Monday night where it predicted something like a 23 actually 18 game I think and ended up being 23-16. But it just I mean you couldn't if you tried to guess yourself stuff like this you would not be nearly as close as the algorithm is all the time. I mean, I challenge anybody. Nobody really takes the challenge, at least because I think they just rather use the algorithm. As soon as you'll see that a lot of people that talk about games and talk about scores and talk about videos, they'll start to emulate whatever the algorithm is doing. It has that impact because it's so right so much. Right. Even though this is not a great looking week. What's interesting about this week last week was when you whip back and look at all the questionable injured players, Tampa Bay, the Chargers, the it was the Seahawks, I think, Detroit. I'm thinking of the teams that were hurting. Saints were definitely hurting. I think it was something like that. These teams that lost, you couldn't do anything about these games, but these teams that lost were hurting. And so they shouldn't have been on this list based on the questionable injuries. Tampa Bay got moved all the way down here. So it was a 9-7 week when you adjusted for questionable injuries about people. And so it's like, yeah, like actually the algorithm did a really good job because it picked off underdogs like Indianapolis was plus 200. I mean, sort this by underdogs, right? Sort of by descending money line. You hit 3 of 6 underdogs, it looks like. And the Patriots had 2 turnovers late that was set. It's bad that it keeps picking Arizona and they are not winning and not really good this year. So I don't like that it's doing that. And when I think about why, I'll start to dig into why that might be. But now that we're using 2022 stats only, I think Arizona was better last year. And that's kind of what was creating some of this. And Steelers lost a close one kind of to the Browns, sort of, even though it wasn't close. Anyway, all right, guys, that's the how to update video. I talked too long, but there's a lot to talk about. So good luck and mail your picks. Be winning.